Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Hello, and welcome to REELdemption. I'm your host, Zack. This is normally the show where I'm revisiting movies that I used to hate, giving them a second chance at redemption, or in this case, REELdemption, but today we're doing something a little bit different, and I'll get into that in just a moment, but first, let me welcome my special guest today. My own twin sister, Krista, is here today. Krista, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Zack. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. It's good to have you.
Thanks.
So if you would, please introduce yourself to our lovely viewers.
Sure. My name's Krista Peebles. I am a mom of 3. I'm a graduate student at Troy University, majoring in communications, and I'm an avid reader and writer.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember you wrote a lot back in the day.
I did. Not as much time to write as I used to have, but I still really enjoy a little bit of writing when I get the chance.
I mentioned today's episode is going to be a little bit different. You see, it's October, it's spooky month, the best time of the year.
Yes, it is.
So today, instead of talking about a film that I remember hating, we're talking about a film that used to scare us when we were kids.
Yes.
We're diving into childhood fears today on the show. But before we get into our film topic, I was curious, is there anything that you remember watching back in the day that you would want to revisit? Something that you hated for whatever reason, that now, you know, our tastes change as we get older, something that you would want to revisit and give a second chance to?
Sure. So as a kid, I was so terrified by the thought of the Headless Horseman, right? In literature and film, that was just the spookiest thing to me. And the Ichabod Crane disappearing in the night, kind of the unresolved story. But as I've studied a little bit more throughout my degrees and throughout school, and even throughout watching films with my kids, I think the Headless Horseman and the Washington Irving type stories are super, super fascinating. Spooky, historical, kind of gripping characters, very cool. And it's something that even my young kids think is fascinating now, but terrified me as a kid.
So you haven't seen, like, Ichabod and Mr. Toad?
We just rewatched Ichabod and Mr. Toad with our oldest, who's 4, maybe a month or so ago, and he thinks the Headless Horseman is the spookiest but the coolest concept.
Okay, so he's on board.
He's on board. He's always
it.
on board. Oh, yeah. Spooky month is our favorite month.
Is there a movie or a show from our childhood that you've shown your kids that either loved or hated for whatever reason?
So we've been really digging into some of the older Disney, like the classic Disney, and even a lot of the classic Disney was a little bit terrifying to me as a kid.
Yeah.
The Snow White villains, the Sleeping Beauty villains, and that's something that my kids are all about. They think it's great. And revisiting as an adult, able to focus a little bit less on how scary it is and how great the art animation is, or the voice acting, or even the music is in a lot of the 30s, 40s, 50s era Disney movies. So that's something we've been revisiting recently, especially around Halloween.
So yeah, your kids are fearless, pretty much.
More or less, yes. Especially my oldest, who's 4. He loves Halloween. He loves all things spooky. We pretty much watch Nightmare Before Christmas year-round. But as soon as October 1st comes, he is there for it. This is his favorite time of the year.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I remember as a kid being scared of everything.
Oh, yes.
I don't know about you, but I remember being scared of everything.
Absolutely. Everything.
You mentioned revisiting some things that scared you back then, maybe not so much now. How does adult Krista handle horror and just spooky things in general these days?
I handle it a little bit better from the sense of introducing some fun, fantastical things to my kids. It makes it a little bit less scary. A good, for instance, is that I was terrified of the Halloween aisle as a kid. Terrified.
Yeah.
I think we both were.
Yeah.
The big spiders, especially the big fuzzy spiders they would always put over the top of the aisles. The animatronics that would speak when you walked by them, those kind of surprises were not my style as a kid. But that's something I've really enjoyed now because my kids love the Halloween store. They love the Halloween aisle. They ask to go all the time. So that's been nice to kind of revisit and redeem those things and not be so thrown off by the fun part of Halloween.
Well, that'll bring us into our film topic for today. A truly terrifying film. The horror of every kid everywhere, I would say. Just a true nightmare of cinema. We're talking FernGully today. FernGully, The Last Rainforest, which came out in 1992, directed by Bill Croyer. What was your reaction when I told you I want to talk about FernGully today?
Man, this was truly traumatizing content. I'm not sure, this was a film, and this is how I remember it. Maybe you remember it differently. This was a film that was selected by our mother because the two main characters are named Zack and Krista.
I'm Zack.
I'm Krista.
Mm-hmm.
So this seemed to her like a really safe, fun, pleasant, family-friendly film featuring characters with the same names. We thought it would be great. And I actually remember very little about this film, like most truly traumatizing experiences. I just remember wanting so badly to connect with the characters in the film because they had our names, but being so disturbed. I don't remember much else. I remember some oozy, spooky character, if I remember that correctly, and lots of peril. Outside of that, I remember almost nothing. So when we started speaking about revisiting this film, my first thought was, man, I wish I remembered more, but maybe there was a reason I don't remember more. So I'm very curious and very intrigued to revisit this film. There's not much I remember that is about it.
Yeah, that actually might be to your benefit going into this.
Apparently so.
There was very little I remembered of it,
Mm-hmm.
but then once I talked to some other people about this movie, and they brought up some things that I'd completely forgotten. I also looked up the synopsis of the film. I haven't rewatched it, but just reading the synopsis, that brought back some memories of the story and the characters.
Right.
So you haven't seen this since we were kids, is that correct?
have not. I have not seen this since I was extremely young, and I've purposefully not revisited a synopsis, nothing on the internet, although I have mentioned it to a few peers that were kind of from the same millennial generation. Most of them have never heard of it, which I thought was interesting. Most of the 30-somethings I've spoken with do not remember this film. So
that's interesting, because
I know.
I've heard from a few people that do remember watching it as kids.
So I don't know. I'm curious to see what it's like.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what I remember from it.
Okay.
I'm not sure how old we were. We were very young. But I do remember Mom picking this out for us because the characters were named Zack and Krista. Zack was a human who gets shrunk down somehow. I don't remember how. Probably some kind of magical nonsense.
And this is what you remember?
Yeah.
I remember none of this.
I remember Zack.
Carry on.
Zack was a human. Krista was a fairy.
Okay.
He gets shrunk down somehow. They meet. They hang out for a while. I don't know what they do together. They probably just loiter outside gas stations or whatever 90s kids did back in the day.
That's what we all did.
I know, right? They meet a bat voiced by Robin Williams.
I'm a nocturnal placental flying mammal, a member of the family of Pteroididae, or Pterodidnae. If you can't tell, I'm a bat!
Don't remember that, but I wish I did.
I forgot about him completely. He was brought up to me. Someone mentioned, oh yeah, Robin Williams. I was like, Robin Williams was in this movie? I don't remember that at all.
That immediately makes it so much better.
Right, and I would think that'd be a plus for this movie. Something that'd be memorable, yeah. The forest that Krista lives in is being cleared out.
Okay.
So Zack and Krista have to stop the deforestation, that was the main...
Okay.
The main plot, again, details are hazy, but there was a machine that drips a sentient goo, I guess kind of like venom, named Hexus.
Okay.
And the name was brought up to me. I forgot about the name. I remember the goo being terrifying, but I don't remember the name. That goo named Hexus was voiced by Tim Curry.
Well, then we should really enjoy this film.
I know. This has all
These
the
are the
makings.
OGs.
This is all the makings of a great film.
Man, this is a perfect 90s film. Okay, we were sleeping on this as kids, apparently.
I know. I remember us being so terrified of Hexus that we never finished the movie.
Was he actually that scary, or was it just a premonition of days to come and coming environmental stressors, maybe? I don't know.
I mean, it was Tim Curry. And
smart guy.
He can be terrifying.
He can be terrifying.
So, I remember, though, he was so scary we didn't finish the movie.
Oh, well, today's the day.
Yeah. 'Cause I don't remember how it ends. I just remember us turning it off and not getting to finish the movie.
Poor Mom. She really had a great plan with this.
I remember us freaking out on her. And her being like, I've made a terrible mistake.
It happens. I'm a parrot. It happens.
It happens. Let me give you the synopsis.
Sure.
So, Krista, spelled with a C, by the way.
Always.
A fairy who lives in FernGully, a rainforest in Australia. has never seen a human before. In fact, she is told they are extinct. But when a logging company comes near the rainforest, she sees that they do exist, and even accidentally shrinks one of them, a boy named Zack. So Krista's the cause of all of this.
Again, always.
Always. Now her size, Zack sees the damage that the company does and helps Krista to stop not only them, but an evil entity named Hexus who feeds off pollution.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think we should rewatch FernGully and see how it holds up.
I think it's time. Let's revisit it.
And we're back. That was something.
That was a movie. That was a movie.
Yes, absolutely it was. So, overall thoughts? What did you think?
Man, that was a zinger. So overall, it was a lot less scary than I thought it would be, and a lot less scary than I remembered, which is honestly probably a bad thing, because
Yeah.
I think the only redeeming quality of that movie was Tim Curry as the oozing
Bad vibes.
the bad vibes personified. That was the redeeming quality, and there was just not enough of that in this movie.
Yeah, I made a note that he was the only interesting part of the movie.
He was the only part you cared anything about.
That's rather nice.
He appears later in the film and then barely pops in. I mean,
Not a big
barely.
role, yeah.
No. He does have the one awkward but pretty killer song, which is another thing I should note. This thing has a very, very strange soundtrack. It is like tacky 90s. You want to love it, but you just can't quite make yourself love it, even if you love 90s music.
Oh, it's very
It
90s.
was just me.
Very 90s. Yeah, he had the best song.
Mhm.
He had the best character, the most interesting character. I mean, the best... I think he was the best animated, too.
Right. So the quality, honestly, of this film to me was not that good.
Yeah.
The audio and the visual were honestly pretty poor. To me, it was distracting from what little bit of story was there, or what little bit of character development was there, was really overshadowed by how difficult it was to watch
Yeah.
and to hear and listen to. It was really something.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched a lot of things where the voices were a little bit quieter and music a little bit louder, but this one was the worst I've seen, I think, ever.
It was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. Very grainy. Some of the colors came through kind of like a eye-burning neon, but not all of the colors. It was very strange.
And to me, the backgrounds almost didn't match up with the characters.
Mm-mm.
Like, characters in the foreground and then the backgrounds, they didn't mesh well, I
No,
thought.
It was very clunky. Very clunky. Felt kind of low budget. To me, it felt like our budget's not that great, so the story was not that great, the supporting roles were not that great, and then maybe they used their whole budget on Tim Curry and Robin Williams saying 10 lines apiece.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we're just spoiled by Disney movies at this point, because by the 90s, Disney was putting out classics. Maybe we're spoiled, but I do agree it did look very cheap. We watched the Blu-ray conversion,
Mm-hmm.
taking everything and then taking a step up. And I feel like almost that was to the film's detriment, because you could see a lot of grain and a
I
lot
agree.
of... It almost looked like dirt particles in the art itself.
I think that may have absolutely been to the detriment of the overall quality of the film. It was rough, and it was extremely distracting.
Yeah, it was. It would take you out of it. And I definitely think that it was a cheaper film.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what the budget was. I didn't even recognize... At the beginning, there was all the studio names, all the production companies. I didn't recognize any of them.
No, I'm telling you, my gut says that budget was spent on Robin Williams and Tim Curry, and they did a good job for what they had.
Yeah.
Man, those were some poorly written characters.
Yeah. Honestly, Robin Williams had nothing to do in this movie.
Nah.
And when we mentioned Tim Curry, who was honestly an awesome villain,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't have a very big role.
No, was hardly in it. And then, I don't know if you want to jump ahead to the ending, but the ending was very kind of anticlimactic, a little bit lackluster, building up like, here's this ancient evil that has terrorized all of nature for decades. And then it's like, he's back. Never mind. We got him again. We're good. It's like...
He's taken out very quickly.
Very strange.
But going back to him being the most interesting character, see, I remembered him, I thought he was part of the machinery that came into the forest, but in the very beginning, we find out he's just, like you said, honestly the ultimate evil that just kind of latches itself onto whatever, at the time, is the worst element in the world. We see him in the beginning, prologue, attached to a volcano. That was really interesting.
That was another part of the movie that was one of the only interesting parts, was the opening 90 seconds.
Right.
It sets up this really cool movie, and then the movie is just...
It's honestly really boring.
It's really boring, a little bit confusing. There's a lot of things that happen that don't really make a lot of sense. They're not explained well. Like the wizard magician grandmother just disappearing when things get tough. Very strange. Very unlikable characters.
Yeah. Speaking of her, I thought it was very strange. The greatest crisis they've ever seen, she just disappears.
Just pieces out, just deuces out on everybody.
She was like, good luck, guys.
Good luck. I'm out of here. Everybody do their best. The rating was a little strange to me as well.
Oh, yeah?
It was rated G for all audiences, but it had the feel it really wanted to be a PG film. And I don't know when movies started really getting those frequent PG ratings, but this was a strange one. And just not a very satisfying movie when you're done. You don't, even if it was like, not that great, but maybe it was nostalgic or it made you feel happy or even made you feel kind of spooked. This didn't really make you feel anything. Kind of unsatisfied and generally like blah and like, I could never watch that again. I'd be fine.
Yeah, I like what you said, how it was to the detriment of this movie that it wasn't scarier than it was, because that's 100% true. At least if it was scary, it'd be more memorable, it'd be more interesting to watch. I feel the same way. I have no desire to watch this ever again. I'll probably forget about this movie tomorrow.
No, would never watch this again. Would not take this movie home and show it to my kids.
That was one of my questions, actually. Do you think you would show this to your kids?
Probably not. I mean, if they came across it one day when they were a little bit older and really wanted to watch it, I would probably say, hey, this is not a very good movie, but if you would like try it, you may. But I would not introduce it to them because there's nothing exciting about it for me.
Yeah, I think the only redeeming factor is Tim Curry.
Absolutely.
And there's plenty of other wonderful Tim Curry performances to look up. I might look up some Hex's clips on YouTube. I liked his song. Again, I forgot this was a musical.
Which was also very strange. It didn't feel like it should be a musical. It felt like they added the songs in there almost as an afterthought to keep up with maybe what Disney was doing. I don't know.
It probably, you know what, I'm gonna take a guess and say it was probably to try to keep up with Disney.
That is how it felt.
Not a memorable Robin Williams performance.
No, not at all. Almost no lines. And then what was in there, the lines were throwaway, and his role in the story was all a throwaway.
Yeah, his character didn't really need to be there.
No.
And I thought it was strange they made him a bat that was experimented on. Like, why? I guess it's just because they wanted zany Robin Williams quotes.
I guess, and I think they were maybe trying to depict some of the evils of mankind at the cost of nature, but that did not the theme may have fit, but we never see a laboratory. We never see the human. It just...
Right.
It was weird.
It wasn't... If that was the intention, which I see that, it wasn't... It didn't come across very well.
No, it was like there was a whole section or two of the movie that had maybe been taken out, which maybe happens.
Possibly. Oh, there was some weird, like, sexual undertones.
So, right, so it almost felt like they wanted to make this like a coming of age or like a sexual awakening movie, which I know is in a lot of films, but in a weird 90s G-rated animated movie.
Don't make it a G movie.
Man, it fell flat. It made it awkward. And it wasn't believable. You had no investment. You did not care about the characters. So it came off as like cringy.
Yeah.
To me, that whole
and creepy.
Was very creepy.
Some of the characters were really creepy.
Super weird.
Yeah.
Did not like that either.
I will say it was a bit ahead of its time as far as the environment is concerned.
That, exactly.
Which is interesting. I know that's a hot topic these days.
So the film ended with, what was the statement? For our children and our children's children?
Yes.
Is that correct? That was the statement that was displayed on the screen at the very end.
Yeah.
It was just interesting because the movie didn't feel like it had enough content to justify the level of weight that goes with that. So you want to end the film and say, yes, we should save the environment. Yes, for future generations. Yes, let's make positive generational choices.
Yeah, that's what they wanted to push, but I'm not sure if they stuck that landing.
I don't think so. The movie did not necessarily make me care about the message it wanted me to care about.
Right, the message it wanted,
Yeah,
it wanted
poorly
to give you.
communicated.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking up some trivia just before we got started here. Apparently this was Robin Williams and Tim Curry's first film, like animated film performances.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but in the same year, Robin Williams would voice the genie in Aladdin. I just thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. Well, I'm glad it worked out for them because this film was not that good.
No, it wasn't. It was just really forgettable
Mm-hmm.
and just really boring.
No, better luck next time. It was definitely not as scary as I remembered.
No, I will say as far as that, in that regard, was not scared once.
No, we worried for no good reason.
No. In fact, I think we agree we found Hexus more interesting than anything.
Absolutely. If anything, we needed more of him.
Another bit of trivia I want to share with you.
Okay.
According to IMDb, the original lyrics to the movie's song Toxic Love, performed by Tim Curry, had obvious sexual themes, implications, and various verses of the original song were cut or rewritten to make the song more appropriate for a family movie.
So that was the more appropriate version.
This was the condensed down version.
Man, I would have loved to hear the original.
I know, right?
Because the edited version was a little on the saucy side for a G-rated
It
film.
was. This was the tame version.
I would not play this movie for my 2 and 4-year-old. That's just me.
Yeah.
So that is interesting.
It is. And apparently, Sir Elton John was involved in this film. You know, Elton John would go on to provide music for The Lion King.
Man, that almost makes it worse. That almost makes me even more sad. If you have Robin Williams, Elton John, Tim Curry, and this is what you get,
Yeah.
it's a sad day.
It had, like, all the greats.
It did.
And
Heavy hitters.
And apparently, Robin Williams' role was supposed to be a lot smaller, but once he got in the studio and started recording lines, they made his role larger.
So maybe that's why it's a little clunky.
Yeah.
Because it was not...
But if this is a larger role, what was the original character like? I mean,
He must have had a cameo.
I guess so. So to wrap it up, you know, I always decide if the film's been REELdeemed or not, in my opinion. Just my opinion. But normally I'm judging it on, I used to hate it, and now, how do I feel about it now? Do I love it? Do I still hate it? In this case, was it still scary? No, it was not scary. But did I like it? No, I did not like it.
No.
So I guess it was REELdeemed in the fact that I'm not scared by it anymore, but it's not in that I did not care for this movie.
And would probably never watch it again?
Oh, no. Would not watch it again.
So, what's your final call?
I guess no, then.
Yeah, I would say no. I'd give it a big fat no.
I guess this is the first one to do so.
Okay, well,
Congrats.
thank you. There's a first time for everything.
Absolutely. I'm glad we were able to do this in person, too.
Yes, and let go of some minor childhood trauma that we apparently were upset about this movie for no reason.
Well, thanks again
Absolutely.
for being on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it was awesome talking to you about FernGully.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank all of you for watching. Thank you so much. If you would, please like and subscribe. New episodes of REELdemption are posted every other Friday, so make sure to come on back. We'll talk about something else. But until then, I'm Zack. This has been Krista. We'll see you next time at the movies. Take care.